G'day, welcome to the very first episode of the Cold Blooded Contributions podcast, which is part of the Morelia Python Media Network. We're your hosts of the Eippers. I'm Scott Eippers, with me is my wife, Colin. This podcast will bring to you people in the hobby that have made an impact on us, be it creatively, with information exchange, improving our husbandry, or just being people that we're learning from.
With us today, we also have Eric. Thanks so much for coming, Eric. We felt a bit awkward interviewing ourselves. So, ball's in your court.
All good. Okay. Well, I'm excited about this. And so let's go. Let's start with you, Ty. What got you started into reptiles?
I got a blue tongue at about the age of 4. Fell in love with it and went from there. Didn't keep much as a teenager. And then early 20s started to keep solidly then. So, I just found that blue tongue fascinating when I was younger and quite the easy pet to look after. And, it went from there.
Okay. What about you, Scott?
Look, like most kids, I never grew up. I was running around.
I can testify to that.
Like most kids, I was running around the scrub, chasing lizards and, anything else I could find. At the age of extremely young age, I was catching lizards and then I had my first encounter with a snake at an extremely young age, told not to touch it. Didn't quite work out that way. So I'd go out chasing lizards and snakes, and my father would then go ahead and release those said animals, and it just never stopped. And so I've had animals since I was, 4 years old. So, yeah.
Okay. Now, I know you guys both write books, and I know you have a lot of books. So tell me, what was there a book that you were into as a kid where you would stare at a particular species that just like blew your mind, that one day you'd have to either see in the wild or keep in captivity?
I'm 5 years older than Scott, and I don't know your age, Eric, but I assume I'm older than you because I appear to be older than everybody. When I was a kid, we had these, it was in New South Wales, there were like project books that you could get from the newsagent,
Okay.
and it had Australian reptiles in it, and it was the frilled neck lizard, actually, in that little, I don't know, it was like a 20-odd page.
Okay, so it was a 20-page book. What was, and it was the frilly that was in there? What was it about the frilly?
There were pages and you could colour in a bit. It had a bit of information in it, but then it had like, 4 or 6 pages, I think, from memory, that were nothing but stickers, and you put the sticker on the page suitable, obviously. Yeah, I don't know what it was about the frilly. It just, I don't know, it looked cool at the time. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, but that was probably one of my first reptile books that made me want to learn more about them.
Okay. What about you, Scott?
Well, the first book that I got that was dedicated to Australian staff was a book by Graham Gow called Australia's Dangerous Snakes. I still have it, and it's it's this book that's just about dangerous snakes. It's got plates at the back of it. All of the pages on that book will open up and stay flat. That's how many times I've looked at that book, right? The book is completely spine, it's completely poleaxed and stuffed. And so as a result, right, I pored over that book. And I remember as a kid, like, drawing the pictures that I could see and all that sort of stuff, and just absolutely loving it. And for me, red-bellied black snakes, just enamored by that black coloration with the bright red sides, and I suppose people saying, oh yeah, they're not that bad, they don't really want to kill people and this, that and the other, just an incredible animal, and to this day, it's a species that I've kept for 30 plus years now, and absolutely love them. They're a beautiful animal to look after. They're a great animal to work with, and an amazing animal to see in the wild. And we see them in the wild quite regularly around our place, which is pretty awesome.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. I know you guys. Well, I'll speak for the Americans. You know, we look at you guys as like, I don't know, what's that?
Weird.
Superhero. I don't know. Like we look at you, both you guys, as the books that you've written, the animals you keep, your level of professionalism when it comes to reptiles, both in the wild and in captivity. How did that become where you are today? How did the two of you end up where you are today?
Certainly not doing podcasts. Because there's basically, as we've shown today, the amount of professionalism we have when it comes to trying to do a podcast. You know, this is probably something that is only a step above a train wreck. But, you know, look, at some point
we can all say the word creativity.
Yeah, exactly, right? Exactly. And look, you know, we're giving this a crack. This is something a little bit, well and truly out of our comfort zones, really. I mean, I don't have too many dramas being an interviewee, because I like talking and I don't have an issue with it. But this is a whole.
Anyone that knows you well knows that true.
Of course. But I suppose getting back to the book side of things, right? For both of us, I think it's dissemination of information and giving back to a community that's given us so much over the years too. You know. I was a member of the VHS, Victorian Herpetological Society, from when I was 8 years old. And I only sort of stopped being a member of the VHS when I moved to Queensland. And, you know, the VHS and the whole Herp Society type scene, and it's not restricted to the VHS, it's all Herp Societies for the most part, they foster the information exchange, but they also help young people and they help other people coming into the hobby, and they help sort of curve their enthusiasm in such ways that helps not only they become successful within the hobby, but then also too making sure that not too many animals die too, I suppose. And so for me, it started with writing little books, little information papers and things like that for the newsletters in various herpetological societies about how to look after various species and stuff like that. And then the opportunity came along to do a book on venomous snake husbandry and frog husbandry as well at the same time. And that's sort of what kicked us off with regards to the writing book side of things, which was obviously a much bigger a thing than writing articles for magazines and stuff like that. You don't quite realise how much bigger it is until you actually give it a crack.
For me, basically, Scott went, we should do this together. There's a great story behind mine. I was trying to think of something really cool while you were babbling on and I couldn't, so I had to be honest. No, I had reptiles before I met Scott.
Okay.
When he moved up from Melbourne to be with us, and I had, I can't remember, I had lizards, snakes, turtle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. No, I didn't have venomous before Scott. So, yeah, no, it was quite the menagerie by the time Scott moved in.
So is it fair to say that lizards are your favorite? Are you a lizard person? Are you a snake person, or just reptiles?
I don't know. I think you go through stages where for a few years you may be into snakes and then maybe lizards or monitors or probably snakes more so for me, really, I guess.
Okay.
For me,
and Scott would definitely be snakes.
Yeah, for me, it's snakes. In particular, I mean, I like the stuff that people don't know so much about, more so than anything else, right? So I'm intrigued by things that we don't know a lot about.
Blind snakes.
Things like, yes, blind snakes. Blind snakes are really interesting, right? So blind snakes, sea snakes, some of the lesser known elapids, they're the stuff that sort of really get me going. That's the stuff that's interesting. I always got a soft spot for elapids as well. They're some of the most misunderstood animals out there that people think are out there to get people and all the rest of it, and that's not the case.
I think too, you own animals, and then maybe one or two will take your fancy that you didn't think actually would.
Yep.
Yeah.
What was that species for you?
For me, it was the the Alpine blotchies.
Okay.
Absolutely love the Alpine blotchies.
Okay. They were you guys keep those outside, right? They were the ones that you had outside? Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right.
I've always been more into adders, and then when we got them, I was like, oh. But yeah,
me,
I know, you go.
For me, the one thing that has been a surprising one for me that I actually like is the imbricata. Right. As much as I give shit to python people and python keepers and stuff like that, imbricata are really interesting animals to look after.
Are you just saying that because Eric's here?
No, I can't.
Rub it in.
I can't. I mean, my favourite python, right, is because of Cuddles. There's an olive python, right, that we've had he's over 40 years old. And so, I can't really go past him as a favourite snake for us, right, or for me personally. And I know that when he eventually dies, I'm going to be a fucking mess. But at the same time, like, yeah, for me, what's the unusual one that I like? Or what I think is unusual for me to like is an imbricata. So, yeah, whatever.
It didn't have anything to do with me Googling over it when I was at your place, did it?
No.
Honestly, I can't believe you didn't get bitten.
It really didn't, eh? Like, I mean, for me, there's something that aren't often kept in the eastern side of Australia too often.
Sure.
WA had laws that prevented animals coming out of their state for a very long time, and that didn't change until the late 90s. And so imbricata was sort of really hard to obtain anyway. So it was one of those species or subspecies at the time that people were like, well, we don't really see them too much, and they look a bit like a coastal for the most part, but not quite. And so, they don't look like coastal.
If you admitted to this, can you now turn around and go, I'm sorry for giving you shit, babe. They were worth it. Like
I'm
publicly?
sorry for giving you shit. Yeah, I'll do it right now.
Ty's idea? Oh,
yeah, she wanted it.
Yeah, it was.
She wanted it.
Yeah, it was. And he's like, what the fuck do you want them for? Exact words.
Another fucking carpet python. Bloody crappets. So yeah, look, it is what it is. That's just sort of where it is. But I suppose you get to sort of look and raise these things, and you learn that hey, these are actually really interesting snakes, and they don't behave exactly the same as other carpet pythons. They sort of behave more like inland carpets than anything else, which I suppose makes sense because where they live and all the rest of it, and the habitat types that they utilise. But they are a very cool carpet python. So, yeah.
And back to the comment about you, Eric, it is actually really cool when you keep something for so long, seeing someone see it for the first time sort of thing, and the joy on their face and the excitement, and we won't go into your level of excitement. But yeah, it is really cool. It sort of renews you a bit because you're so used to your own animals. So yeah, it was really cool to see how excitable you were.
So is this sort of what led you guys to sort of be involved in the education side of reptiles and showing people that they're not these scary animals that everybody thinks they are?
I started doing demos when I was in my early teens, working with other demonstrators and stuff like that. So I never sort of stopped that. And it was all about that exchange of information and getting rid of the myths that are around these things and trying to prevent animals from people killing these beautiful animals. Because if you understand or learn a little bit about these things, you can understand that they're not out to kill you. Yeah, okay, yeah, a tiger snake might be venomous or a brown snake might be venomous, but they don't come chasing you. They're not out there to try and hurt people. And realistically, if you look into it, you can see that these things are out there, and they provide a really good service to the community by eliminating pest species such as rodents and stuff like that, which save the agricultural industry literally millions of dollars a year in lost grain production and stuff like that. So if you can explain to people that these things aren't out to get them, and that they have a benefit to people, not only in them being a financial improvement to things, but also there's a thing to say for there are species that are on the planet. They're here. They've got as much right to be here as we do. And as a species, we should be a little bit more intelligent about things like that.
Okay. Any thoughts for you, Ty?
Oh, like the venomous snakes when Scott moved in. Yeah, I wasn't. It's a special sort of license here, so I didn't have that license, obviously, before Scott moved in. So, yeah, when Scott moved in, that's when I started doing demos.
Oh, okay.
Begrudgingly, because, I'm such a in front of people person.
Are you the behind the scenes type of person taking care of the animals? Like what are I know you just
the glorified shit cleaner.
Wouldn't say glorified.
Oh, so ballsy in front of others. Thrown me. Scott does have a 9-to-5 job, doing the demos and certainly writing books does not pay the bills, and everyone's seen Scott's book collection. That certainly doesn't afford that. So I sort of work from home with the business, whether it's the animals, the website, whatever, and Scott does his 9-to-5 job and then comes home and pitches in afterwards.
Okay.
That's why he looks a lot older than his age. He's knackered.
Shots going all around.
Well, what's your excuse?
So for someone that's
I didn't buy hair dye. Sorry.
No, you're good. For someone that's outside of Australia, is there a species? You know how much I love Australian species. Is there a species that you guys love that's outside of Australia?
Eastern Diamondbacks.
Oh, okay. That was quick. All right.
Yep.
About that, did you?
No.
Yeah, for me, it's a toss-up. There's half a dozen things that I'd love to see in the wild.
What's that top one? That one.
Lachesis melanocephala, mate. The black-headed bushmaster from Costa Rica.
Okay.
That's right up there. I'd also love to see Gila monsters as well. Gila monsters are really high.
Pretty cool.
And shit, pale shakers are pretty cool too. And I'd like to see cobras. Cobras in the wild too. So we spent a little bit of time in Bali early last year. And we got to see tree vipers and sea kraits and Draco and all sorts of really cool animals, which was amazing. So there's been a few things that we've seen, but there's a lot of things that we haven't seen that we want to see. So
gotcha.
That little thing called time and money.
I always find it interesting perspective is you sort of it's sort of similar to what you were saying earlier. You have something that you see all the time, you sort of take it for granted to a certain extent, but there's a certain magic when you go somewhere that you've never been and everything is new and exciting. And is there
definitely
anywhere else that you would like to travel?
The list is huge.
Okay, fair enough.
Scott needs to do overtime.
So is your
There's a few
go-to
books we've
Georgia
got.
to see Eastern Diamondbacks? Is that where you-
We sort of not made a travel plan, but Scott said that we're definitely going home for my 50th, which is coming up much faster than money's allowing sort of thing. So we sort of figured if we did like a cheaper place to travel 1 year and a more expensive place the next year, and we're coming back, well, we're coming back. We didn't get there in the first place. We're going to the States 26th, I think we'd planned.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah, Europe 25. So they're two expensive ones. So we've also got a couple of books on the go as well. So it's sort of where can we go that will help photo-wise, data-wise with the books that we've got on the desktop. So we can have our own photos.
These are books you guys have planned. Oh, okay. Oh, that's awesome.
Or well, they're not even planned. They're happening. They're being written at the moment.
Okay.
So
I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very nice.
So there's some spots in Australia that we need to go to for that project, and then there's other stuff that we need to go further afield for, I suppose, without giving too much away. And then the US. I'd really like to drive across the US. I think that's probably the best way to see a lot of stuff. So, potentially flying up to the northeast of the US, and then driving to the southwest. So go from north to south, and then from Florida basically across through the southern part, and then leaving California. So try and find a way that we can hire a car and basically drive from one side of the country to the other.
The Keith and Therese are in for a nice big road trip. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Well, it'd be good to get up to the northeast, right, and go and see timber rattlesnakes.
I know a spot.
Definitely.
Yeah. Timber rattlers. Timber rattlers, and then down to Florida, and then from Florida across through Georgia and Arizona, Texas, Arizona, and then into Cali.
Okay.
And give it a crack, chase down a few animals, and see how we go.
What do you guys like? What's the goal of the podcast? Like, what do you hope to come out of it?
Well, we own an online bookshop, and if I had my way and we were loaded, we'd have a storefront bookshop. I just love the thought of a bookshop. We focus only on reptile books, but, like big comfy armchairs, coffee machine, you know what I mean? Like just a place to sit down, chill, relax. And with that, I wanted to do author nights. And we're in Logan, and it's pretty far away from a lot of keepers. And it just wouldn't happen. It's not viable. So we thought if we did a podcast, it would be an up-to-date technical version of an author. Yeah. So, that's where the idea for the podcast came from.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think as well on top of that, the way it sort of evolved into being that it's not only talking to other authors and things like that, but talking to all people that are sort of visionaries and creationists, I suppose, for lack of a better term, within the hobby, right? So that could be people that are doing artwork and stuff like that, to people producing podcasts and documentaries, anything that...
Heads up, Eric, you're coming back.
We'll switch the tables around when we get a little bit more confident. But I suppose the whole idea is just to have that, try and find from other people what inspired them and why they use reptiles as a conduit for their creativity. Now, there's been that whole interview thing on how people keep animals and all that sort of stuff. And we're not going to say that we're not going to sort of touch on that side of things, because at the end of the day, right, it's a big part of our lives and probably a fairly large part of our guests' lives as well. But the idea of this podcast isn't specifically around the keeping of reptiles. It's more about the people around that. And then, and also too, what people seem to misunderstand a lot is that it's most of the time when it comes to doing this, it's two people in this relationship that are working with these animals, right? So in your case, Dory's obviously is impacted by reptiles as well within her life, right?
Sure.
Rightly, wrongly, it is what it is, right? And so
he hasn't seen his imbricata excitement though.
No. So I suppose that's the other part too, right? Is that there's other people that, there's sometimes people are more focused on one person in a family, and we want to give that opportunity for people, if they're comfortable, to come on and talk about their experiences with reptiles and amphibians and their impact on their lives as well.
That's awesome. Okay. Very cool.
Try to find out something that's not quite the same as everything else that's out there.
Sure. I mean, I think just the fact that you two are married, just the fact that you two are in Australia, I think there's a severe lack of Australian focused podcasts, from people in Australia, to hear the perspective, because the only thing that happens is either, American podcasts or having Australian breeders and keepers and people that are, herpers and all that kind of stuff. And sometimes we get it wrong. Remember me in the early days of carpets?
I think too, though, it's not as easy. Like, listening to it is one side of it, but as you would well know, behind the scenes, even to do an interview, you might set aside an hour, but you talk for 3 or 4 usually, because you don't get to catch up with that person on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. It's preparing for it, etc., etc. It's not an easy or a quick undertaking, and I think time's just going faster for everyone. So maybe people don't have the want, because I can assure you this is me stepping out of my comfort zone. Maybe they don't have the want or the time to actually, or the know-how either. Like, you've helped us greatly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Maybe one of the reasons it takes so long is because the person that's trying to do the intro fucks it up 4 times in a row.
It's definitely not as easy as people think, for sure.
No, it's not.
That's
it's not.
For sure.
So I suppose, while this episode's mainly been about us, right? I do have a question for you, Eric. And without notice, but why podcast for you? Right? What was the reason for you to stand in your bathroom and talk at yourself in the mirror?
He's never going to let you live that down.
No, well, look, in fairness, right, it's not something that he hasn't thrown out there before. So,
I say it all the time.
Was it was it BK or something like that? Who was there was an old reptile podcast, I think I vaguely remember you saying had sort of some influence on you as a kicker. And you thought, right, hey, I can either do it better or I can do it differently. So why? Was it a way of marketing EB Morelia?
No, EB Morelia didn't even exist at the time, really. So I felt that everybody in America was focused on ball pythons, and I stumbled upon an interview that the Reptile Radio, it was Reptile Radio, was the one, and they focused mostly on ball pythons. But one time they had this guy on talking about carpet pythons, and I don't know what it was about that species, or complex. I can't break away from them. I don't know what it is. There's just something about those species that just do it for me. And I felt that the level of knowledge out there was next to nothing. They were just aggressive. There was all these misconceptions about them. So I figured rather than focus on ball pythons, I'm going to do something that focuses on carpet pythons. And yeah, that's sort of where it came from. And I guess if I was going to say, if I was being, if I'm being honest, it was probably a way for me to talk to people that I normally wouldn't have a way to talk to and learn from them.
Yeah, completely get that. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
that hasn't worked for you. Well, I mean, it's certainly done.
Would you like me to kick him?
I mean, it's like one of those things, as I go along and you think you know a lot about something, then you realize how much you don't know, and that's the fun of it. I love learning about them. I love seeing them in the wild. I love keeping them. I love breeding them. I love talking about them, as everybody probably knows that listens to Moray Python Radio. But I don't know. I don't know what it is about that group of snakes, but it just fascinates me. I've even tried other pythons, but they don't do it for me. I end up giving them to Owen.
It's funny, right? Like I happen to have been there when you saw your first imbricata and your first wild carpet python, right? In both times. And the face that you had when you saw that carpet in the scrub out of Boondall wetlands, you were like, oh my God, I cannot believe this is a carpet python, right? And it was a half reasonable looking carpet too, right? But it wasn't anything really to write home about, right?
No.
But to you at the time, that was the most beautiful carpet python you had ever seen in your life. You were so happy, and you were like, "This is a carpet python, right?" And I suppose I was looking when I looked at the second edition of the more complete carpet. Here's that carpet python in the book, and I was like, "That." It obviously meant so much to you, right? And I suppose it's something that we all want to try and capture each time, and I think that's one of the reasons why we like reptiles, right? Is that we're chasing that fucking drug, that high to try and get that again each time, which you never really seem to the same way, but you see other things as well, right? And for me, the other week I was down in Sydney, and I walked around a rock face, and I was out looking for diamond pythons, and I've seen diamonds before in the wild and all that sort of stuff, but I'd never seen them basking during the day. And so I went to this spot where apparently they bask during the day, and I remember sort of coming around this rock face, and as I came around the rock face, I looked across, and here is this diamond stretched out across a tree branch, 40 feet up in the air. There's literally a waterfall behind it. It was like, oh my God, this is incredible, And like
he was
the whole
actually
time,
on the phone to me, and he's like, oh my God, I gotta go, oh my God. And he was so excitable. I was like, wow, for a carpet.
For a fucking carpet. So,
Yeah.
And
he doesn't get that excited at Christmas.
yeah, or even seeing a new book. So for me, right, they're the things that you chase, right? The last time that I was sort of like that is, I was walking along a beach in Bali, and I looked down, and in between these two boulders, there's a sea crate cruising through, and I'm like, oh my God, you just get so excited, right?
Yeah.
And for me, one of the things.
Wouldn't it have been the Viper in Germany? I think that overtook everything.
Yeah, that was pretty good. That was pretty good as well. And that was Holland, but anyway, from my point of view though too, right, is that I take photos too, right? So it's almost like hunting. Where people have their trophy and their trophy that they hang on a wall, which is, hey, more power to you if that's what you like to do. That's great. For me, I like taking photos, and I see those photos as my trophies, so to speak, and getting to see those photos in print elsewhere and stuff like that as well is like, hey, I remember that, and it takes you straight back to that time, that day, and for me, I looked at that photo of that carpet that I got with you, and it wasn't something that, for me, it was a pretty average carpet python. It was pretty uneventful, right? But
Right.
and I don't think I even bothered taking photos of it, as I recall, either, right? And but I remember looking at the photo, thinking, and that photo of that snake took me straight back to that day in Boonville Wetlands with yourself and Rob and was it Chris?
Chris. Yep.
Chris, yeah.
Chris. Yep.
So it was the three of you guys, and just seeing how happy you guys were, and then that takes me back through walking through, and we're looking at, stumps, and then we're looking at skinks and stuff like that. Then end up being food for juvenile carpet pythons and stuff like that. And it takes you right back to that initial time. So, for me, the creative side of these things is taking imagery and taking photos and stuff like that, and then disseminating that information, and then being able to relate that back to happy memories, as opposed to forgetting about the hours that it takes to take a photo and the walks that are like hell and getting smashed by ticks and leeches and fucking rain and sleeping poorly and hurting your back and hurting your knees and hurting your elbows and all that sort of shit. That's what it is.
Right.
You forget all that when you see the picture.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. I mean, that was the first time we met you, right? We've talked to you many times before that, but you just go out and you're like, oh, look, carpet. And when you said that word, I'm like, phew! Shooting across.
It's like fucking Jesus walking across water, right? Going across there.
Yeah, 100%.
It was a lot of fun.
Now I'm wishing there was water in the backyard when he saw the imbricata, if that's what happened.
Oh my God. He was so excited. And you know what? You can't help but not be excited as well. When you see someone like that, you feed off that energy. And
definitely.
You're like, how good is this for somebody to have seen these things?
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I think that it's important. What I've learned doing the podcast is that I shouldn't be... I know, we all taking shots at crappets and all that stuff, and it's all in fun. I get it, but it's like you shouldn't be. I don't want to say ashamed. That's not the right word, but if that's what you love, that's what you love. You know what I mean? You should just embrace it. And for years,
definitely,
I'm like, maybe I should try this or try that, and white-lipped python or these pythons that are maybe more, not as.
So are you saying that Owens
popular?
should just come out and? Are you saying that Owens should just come out and say that he loves Sasquatch and be done with it?
Yeah, exactly. But it's you just do what you love. That's kind of where.
Yeah, for sure. And I suppose this
whatever
is what
that is.
I think in some ways this is what this podcast is about, right? In that we're wanting people to talk about their passions of creativity, and you can't produce the artwork that people produce and not love doing that art.
Yes.
And
the data that they produce by the dog's on my lap. By
the horse
being ashamed of maybe say a gecko because it's not venomous or something like that. Like there's no need for it.
Right.
Yeah. And understand,
100%.
I think people have got to remember that just because you don't necessarily love that particular species, that doesn't mean to say that other people don't find them absolutely enigmatic and enamoring as well.
And if everyone liked the same thing, it'd be bloody boring.
Yeah, 100%. Most of the people that are in my inner circle are not into what I'm into, which is fun because then
you mean reptile-wise? We're still talking about reptiles, yeah?
Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
Wide open, Eric.
I think it's interesting though too, right? I remember talking to somebody years ago about it, and they were saying that animals are like the great common denominator amongst their friends, right? The people that they remember, the people that they talk to, inadvertently are their animal friends, right? They're the people that they may not talk to for 10 years or 15 years or whatever, and then next thing you know, they bump into each other, or they pick up the phone and they talk to somebody, and it's like they were speaking to them yesterday. Whereas it seems like a lot of other people, certainly in our lives, are almost transient. If they're not an animal person, animal people we may not talk to for 10 years, and then we're talking to them like it was yesterday. We were just talking. So,
yeah, that's true. Yeah. Cool.
Alrighty. Well, I think that's sort of where we're at, I suppose. I think that's a pretty good place to sum it up. Did you have anything else you wanted to add?
No. Sorry, the dog's pouring at me and he's getting impatient, so I'm all good. He's heavy.
Right. Okay. Eric, did you want to throw anything else out there before I do the sign off?
No, I'm just excited that you guys are doing a podcast, and I can't wait to hear what you do. You know, I'll be
Fantastic.
your first.
All right. Well, That's it. Well, you're going to be editing this shit, mate. So,
we'll get you saying creativity properly by what, right. Episode 24 or something?
Yeah, probably, maybe if you're lucky, you know. So I suppose what I'd like to just sort of sign off with is just, hey, everybody, please, hope you enjoyed this episode. We're always keen for feedback. Be gentle. It's our first shit show. It's not the easiest thing to have a crack at, I must admit. But yeah, look, any feedback would be great if you want to direct it to either me or Ty. Or if
it's bad, straight to Eric.
Yeah, if it's bad, go straight to Eric and cut us. But yeah, look, we'd just like to give a shout out to the other podcasts in the Morelia Python Radio stable. At this point in time, I realise I really should have printed out that list so I could have seen all of the other podcasts in there. So that's going to be something that we're going to work on for the next one. So to everybody else, happy days. Cool. All right. Ty, do you want to throw that last line that you cooked up?
Remember, guys, always trust your creativity. It's intelligence having fun. Thanks for having us.
Thank you.